we've talked about over the years on and off, and it's definitely a fun
dun, dun.
Myst, yep.
So realistically, the Myst element of this was really actually like a blip on the radar in the the grand scheme of the island. So what we're talking about here is actually the abandoned escape island project Disney World was planning.
Way before there were escape rooms.
Escape rooms. So basically, for reference, we'll throw this photo up. Disney has an island that is now called, it's fully abandoned, but it's now called Discovery Island.
Well, that's what it was when it opened.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, it's gone through a few names. It was like Pirate Island. It was like it had a few different names.
Well, when it closed, it was called Discovery Island.
Right. So essentially, what it was in its initial conception was a habitat for animals.
Right, for exotic animals that you wouldn't be able to find.
And a slightly pirate-themed scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
The island had, I guess this was really a precursor of Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
Which
is why it closed, because they opened Animal Kingdom, and
now
it's an island.
Right.
Yeah, you don't need to go to an island.
An entire massive theme park is better than an island where you have limited attendance issues.
Right.
Which is what we'll get into, as far as Discovery Island and why it couldn't work for what they were looking to do.
Right. Yeah.
To a degree, which we'll talk a little bit about Galaxy's Edge, because I think they figured out how to nip this a little bit. However, the concept of the island was that people would get tour boated in. They would have X amount of hours on the island for the day. And they would go about whatever, it was basically a nature walk. They set up their own, man-made rivers, and there was an aviary.
It looked like it was very much an aviary, more above everything else.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that was added. When it first opened, it had very low attendance. And then they added the aviary. They added some other features to try to bump attendance up. And that had worked for a period of time. But ultimately, their attendance was the issue. They couldn't get enough people on the park at a time for it to really be profitable enough for them to call it an attraction. So hence they said this has potential in concept, but not in this location.
Right, yeah.
So let's build Animal Kingdom. So there was a number of years where this park was open. I believe 70s to the 90s.
Yes,
and it closed in the 90s.
In like 99, I think it was.
Yeah. So essentially, this park had its run. They closed it down. What do we do with it?
Right.
We've still got an island that people could attend. Now, one of the things that I did a lot of research, because I was really interested in this for a while, there was a lot of talk that one of the reasons they ended the island was bacteria in the water surrounding the island. There is deadly bacteria. There's traces of it found in the water, but as long as nobody goes for a dunk, it's not really something that's a concern to an attraction on an island. So that is not why they closed it. They really closed it because Discovery Island was profitable. They wanted higher attendance to make more money, so they made Animal Kingdom. The end. Matter of fact, I believe there is even a Discovery Cove or something.
Yeah, I read that too. It's like it started as like the Tree of Life, and they renamed it Discovery Island. I might even be Discovery Island.
Right, I think that's where Rafiki is, and like other So so there's even a
go back to the Tree of Life after the Lion King live action.
Right. You've got this kind of call to what was before in the park there as a tribute. So they were looking for other things to do with the island, and a massive scavenger hunt was on the list. And then there was a licensing play with Myst, the video game from the early 90s.
Myst was a video game from the early 90s. It was the highest selling video game until 2002 when the Sibs came out for computers. And it really was a landmark game in that it put the format of the CD-ROM on the map. But also it was that you were on an island and you had to solve puzzles to discover the mystery of the island and ultimately get off the island. So that seems perfect for a theme park, and it is definitely very proto escape room. And I feel like if like Myst and a couple other games from the time did not exist, we might not even have escape rooms today.
It was definitely that initial love of the puzzle content on CD-ROM.
And
My first introduction to that was actually a neighbor who was addicted to it, and I started playing it. It was a little slow moving for me. I didn't really have, especially at that age, the attention span for it. I revisited it years later. Jess, my wife, and I had tried playing it, and we were bored.
But they don't hold your hand. That's
no.
They don't tell you what you need to do. You have to figure it all out yourself.
No.
And that made it a little tough, and especially for someone revisiting it now, it would be a little tough.
An upcoming topic of this episode is clues and hints. They do not really feed you clues and hints in this one.
Yeah, nothing.
Myst was very, very hardcore puzzle your way through. Yeah. But even the puzzles were very different than what you find in escape rooms.
They were not necessarily... Well, yes, there's a lot of pulling levers and switches and things like that, and they didn't all connect to each other either. In fact, part of the story of Myst was being able to go into different worlds. Right. So each world had its own design, its own puzzle, and so they weren't necessarily all connected like an escape room might be.
Right. And Disney could have done the hell out of this.
And to think about what could have been to have that island there, set it up like Myst, which at that time, everybody knew.
Right.
And have similar puzzles to what was in Myst, and that would have been a great experience.
It would have been. The element that I think was going to be a potential issue is you would have to design it very linear, because if you give people free roam of the park, unless you have isolated self-resetting puzzles,
right?
Kind of like a la, shout out to Five Wits, they do that very well. But an entire island of that might get a little old fast.
Yeah. It seems a little arbitrary to just have unrelated puzzles that anyone can just kind of solve.
It's a lot of the way that Myst was itself.
Though. Yeah, but I mean, it's one thing to play a computer game. It's one thing when you have, like 50 people, all kind of running around an island, pulling levers and switches, because pulling levers and switches are awesome.
Yeah,
who doesn't like doing that?
Point.
But there's no rhyme or reason for any of it when you're actually there doing it.
Or if you're trying to solve something and you're on something and a kid runs up and pulls the switch and resets the whole puzzle.
Yeah.
That's very that's a very accurate element to it that would have been problematic.
Yeah.
Because I know the island was set up with trails that would take you kind of through the entire route of the island, and then ultimately back to the docks. So I would figure they probably would have kept to that to a degree.
They could have done it linear then, yeah.
Very similar to, for example, how Five Wits or the Saw experience in Vegas takes you room to room, but you can't go back.
Right.
Once you've completed a room, it's resetting itself. You're moving to the next room, and cycle, repeat.
Yeah, except being an open island as it was, it would feel like it would take away, kind of.
What Six Flags Great Adventure wanted us to build.
Yeah.
There was a point where we were working with Six Flags Great Adventure to build a game in the theme park. But ultimately, it had to be completely 100% linear. A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D. And they wanted, 2 minutes per room?
Yeah, it had to reset itself incredibly fast so that we can get the next group in.
Right. So you can't even get adjusted to a puzzle in that amount of time. It was not really doable. I don't think this was going to be that way. I think you were going to have, a half a day.
Right, but that actually is part of the problem in itself too. Why they couldn't crack it? Yeah.
Though, Galaxy's Edge does kind of take that concept and limits your time.
It does.
It does. For example, I think.
I did read about that when as their first opening for the first couple of weeks. You have like a wristband that you're only allowed in for a certain amount of time, and then you get escorted out by stormtroopers if you go over the time.
I think
which will make everybody go over the time
Intentionally.
Yeah.
I think it's the
They're gonna get rid of that
cantina is like the lounge bar / shopping. I think you have 2 hours in there.
I guess 2 hours is good enough. Is enough time to shop.
I could be wrong. Like, please don't quote me on any of these times or comment in the comments if you know them. But and I think it's 4 hours for the rest.
For the entire thing.
Yeah, Smuggler's Cove.
That could be a good way. Having seen what people, when Harry Potter opened, the swarms of people that were there and how long things took, limiting people to it is probably a really good idea. For at least until it settles down a little.
So as a result, they're only letting X amount of people in at a time. They have their time slot, and then they're escorted out. The hotel is apparently a predetermined 2-day experience. So there's a storyline across the 2 days that you're engulfed in and immersed in. There are puzzles. I was actually listening to reviews of someone who had gone and participated through the whole thing, and you're given roles, and as you're playing through those roles, there's like it actually reminded me 100% of Five Wits' Space Game, which I can't remember the name of. I apologize. It was quite honestly my least favorite of the 3 I played. Because it really reminded me of an artificial video game.
Yeah, you're not a sci-fi fan.
But, I mean, true, but, hold on, we seem to have lost connection for a second here. Let's see if are we back? What's going on? If anyone could comment, are we still good to go here? Because I think we are, but I'm not positive.
The Russians are coming. Cybersecurity.
Make sure. Here we go. Hello? Anybody there? Okay. Thanks, Brian. Much appreciated.
Still good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah. Good to see you, Brian, and hope you're doing well. Brian from Cracked at Escape Games is watching. Frank and I know him personally from the Room Escape conferences. And Brian actually has an awesome story that maybe one day we have to video him in to kind of tell. He was in a location in his neck of the woods. Big storm pretty much wiped him out. And thanks to, a lot of ingenuity, a lot of determination, and some community support, he was able to get back up and running. And from what I understand, he's doing better than ever. So congrats. We'll have to get him on the show to really get some details about, what happens when a storm comes through. But okay, so anyway, back where we were. The Galaxy's Edge does have you're basically, you get into the Falcon.
Right.
And you have your roles. So the first, say, couple seats are for, the firefighter people. So they're operating the laser beams and all the stuff to destroy any incoming enemies. And then the seats behind you are, the engineers. So you're trying to
repair the ship.
Yeah, and, catch on to, another ship by cabling, and so they're operating that stuff. And it's all done through virtual screens that you're looking out the space windows and stuff like that, which is exactly how Five Wits plays their space game.
Oh, yeah.
You're sitting in the seats, and you have your roles, and, I'm hitting X, Y, and Z button, you're hitting A, B, C, and that's how it plays. It's, literally the same concept.
They have their own in-house designers, right? It's not like they went out and got...
Yeah. Although, Five Wits is designed by a former Disney Imagineer. So... but yeah, that game was not my cup of tea. However, I can understand why people would enjoy it. But that's very much the Galaxy's Edge Smuggler's Cove concept. And from what I understand, you can build a lightsaber and it's $200.
But you get to keep it.
All the reviews are that, once you get into the cantina place, you're probably dropping $500 by the time you leave. So
I'm probably going next year, so
immersive at its best. But yeah, we almost got
start saving for that now.
an escape island at Disney World. Was that the absolute end of escape room concepts at Disney World?
No.
Nope. There's another, which we'll get into now. So, essentially, Disney had moved into a team building exercise, and there was a big announcement about it, and then it got very hush-hush, and now they run it through Disney meetings and events. And essentially, it's a massive corporate team building game. And it is an escape room with live actors. But the escape room is, for all intents and purposes, a massive banquet room.
Yeah.
Where they bring in some set pieces, so kind of very similar to how we do trapdoor events, and we bring out our puzzle boxes and some features and props. They do that, plus giant props to take over the room, and they decorate the room. They have the benefit of having a devoted banquet room for this.
Right.
And
actors.
And actors, yeah, right. So, as you can see in our photo here, the concept is very steampunk. So, you've got your cast of, say, 5 characters, and they guide the experience.
Right.
So, your clues and hint system is in the room with you.
A little bit how we were thinking of doing Windward.
A little bit,
yeah.
yes. Sorry, the noise you're hearing is actually one of our staff not being capable of getting our front door open.
It gets sticky in the summer.
A little bit, but you'd think you'd be able to pop a door lock. So multiple cast members guiding the experience, your clues, your hints, and guidance throughout, as well as kind of resetting the game as it goes, which we do when we do our off-site events also. But I was able to find some actual photos inside the space, so you could see kind of like in these photos the size level of the props that they were committing to this experience. And let's see here, they've got a massive map where for our events it's typically more of a 9x11 paper sheet size. They really get into large size props to create a set out of nothing.
Right.
Which is something we started doing with a few of the concepts. This is actually a nice size photo of more scale of their set work. So you've got all these different zones where they go to in groups, and from what I understand, they're looking to entertain several hundred people at a time.
Right. It's not really for the common man to do. It's for corporate.
No. Matter of fact, this is not applicable or available to common groups. Right. We tried. We actually contacted them when it first opened and said, we want to bring out our team and do it as a team building event, and we were well under head count. I believe minimum head count's 200.
Oh yeah.
So
so not a lot of companies can do that.
No, definitely not a lot of companies can do that. However, there's plenty that will, and they're paying for a massive experience because from what I know, Disney Meeting and Events also fully caters all of their events, and so you're probably spending $30,000.
Oh yeah.
Minimum price.
So it's worth it for them to do the actors and the sets and everything else. Yeah.
It's a room that is probably designated for other meetings and events, activities, and other banquets and things, and things to that effect.
Right.
And then when someone books the escape room concept, they just wheel everything in because it's literally theater set pieces.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's in a predetermined space allows them to just bring it on in.
Right. They know that there's a set space and what everything is, the space that everything's going to take up.
It's not like they're going to bring these set pieces to another territory or location or another state. They're where we've gone to Connecticut or we're supposed to go to Maryland. We have a lot more ability to bring our stuff, but it's smaller. We're not doing that level of a set design in that circumstance. So totally different, totally different, but very the same.
Right. Same contest, same concept, but on a larger scale.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
So, for
on a Disney level scale.
Whoever asks, why doesn't Disney do an escape room? They do. They just want $30,000 for an hour.
Right.
I'm sure that with the catering and everything else, it's not an hour. it's probably 3 hours. But regardless, Disney's not doing it unless it's highly, highly profitable. Now, does that say something to the escape room industry?
Well, I mean, again, the mobile concept, and it depends on how you do it. I mean, like I said, that's a Disney scale thing. Like, we do pretty well with trapdoor events, having our puzzles and bringing them places.
Thank you, everyone.
But I mean, yeah, it's not Disney level because we're not asking $30,000 for it.
Right.
We're also not Disney, so I mean, like,
not yet.
I don't even mean us. I mean anyone. In
no,
the
but I mean, like, it's like they have a name attached to it already, so they already have that built-in audience for it. Like, everyone's going to Disney anyway. So the fact that they can open up an escape room is like, okay, it's Disney doing an escape room. Whereas if we had like this big elaborate thing, we'd be like, who are you people?
Yeah.
Now, even if like Five Wits tried doing something like this, like there's only so many people that know what Five Wits is. So they're not going to they can't ask for $30,000 and get like 200 people in, because it's still a very niche thing.
Right.
Yeah. Disney is known by, like, what Disney is like before you're even born. Like, it's part of like your genetic material to know what Disney is. So I mean, there's a name backing that up and justifying it. Whereas for a typical escape room, I don't know if that's feasible just yet.
Well, I mean, it's not exactly like we do these weekly, but we've had multi-hundred.
Oh yeah, we do things like that, but it's not to the elaborate style that Disney can pull off.
Oh, sorry, Mike. I noticed you're a little low on your Rosemount Shiraz.
Maybe considering that we just talked about substance abuse, maybe we shouldn't be drinking.
It's afternoon.
We'll just give a little
Then
dribble.
it's a holiday too.
Little dribble.
Not for the people who have substance abuse problems, Frank.
Well, we're not saying they should.
We don't have substance abuse. Well, I don't. Maybe.
No, do I.
But okay. So anyway, but notice there's not. They don't have an escape room in the park.
Right.
Yes, Brian. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Pour one out for us, buddy. And
it comes back to the same concept of the island, though. Getting the amount of people in and rushing people through puzzles, it doesn't feel like an escape room if you're constantly being rushed.
Right. Look, at the end of the day, this isn't a pat on the shoulder moment for us, but Trapdoor is a multi-million-dollar company at this point. Our annual revenue does, hit into those numbers, but most companies don't.
Yeah.
And beyond that, for a major company like Disney, they'd look at that and be like,
yeah, they don't need it.
So, and to even Great Adventure's point, if you've got thousands of people in attendance a day, and you're saying that you're only going to allow 6 to 8 people in a room for 1 hour or more, like for example, 16 people in QRZ for 2.
It's just not worth it for them.
It's still not worth it for them.
Yeah, because they're already in the park.
What's interesting, too, about Myst is that it was created for the concept to kind of cater to people who got sick of standing online for several hours. So
right.
like, it was like, okay, well, we'll take you to this island for like 5 hours.
Right.
And then you stay there. But, that kind of feeds back into the point that we had earlier about, some of the puzzles just being arbitrary. It gets to a certain point where you're just in one location for 5 hours. And it's like, I'm bored.
That's not why you're going to Disney.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, the concept that we did pitch, Great Adventure, Disney World is implementing, which was the online puzzle games.
Mm.
They're doing it through apps.
Yeah.
So basically, you'll kind of get your app, download it, and while you're online, you're solving puzzles and doing other kind of fun stuff. So we were onto something.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, and but by all means, comment below. Let us know your thoughts on this because I'm kind of interested. When people get in. There's no doubt in my mind that tons of people every year get into the escape room industry because they think they're going to be multimillionaires in a week by spending $5,000.
Well, it's like what we talked about the last couple weeks. They're like zombie movies.
Right.
Everyone can make one. 90% of them
should.
aren't
Yeah.
that. Yeah, doesn't mean you should
Yeah.
just because they're easy, and 90% of them aren't good. You can get better, but I mean, because it's a constantly evolving thing. But 90% of them are not good.
Yeah. And talking about comments, something I wanted to mention before. Even if we're not live anymore and you're watching this as a separate video, comment. We will see it. We will address it the next show. So it's like we don't have to be live for people to comment.
True.
Exactly.
Very true. We are checking the comments post
Right.
show. But yeah, I mean, it is, you're right, Brian, it is a whole separate discussion. But, we did kind of scratch the surface on that a little bit in a previous episode.
Yeah.
And, this is, I guess, kind of getting into a continuation of. But, if Disney's not doing it, there's probably a reason. An escape room is probably never going to be $1 billion business. Unless you have locations literally clear across the world. You would probably have to have 100 locations.
Yeah, I think...
all with popular content.
Yeah, as I said, unless you're backed by some major company with name recognition that already has a built-in audience, like Disney, I don't know how feasible it is for an escape room company to do that.
Right.
But at
To that level.
But at the same time, you notice that Disney is realizing the value in immersion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And having puzzle elements in their stuff. So while it might not be an escape room, like Galaxy's Edge and the new parks that are being created are very immersive and still have some kind of challenge element to it. It's not just like, go look at something.
And we talked about this last week, right?
Yes.
About just, the idea of what an escape room actually is now.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean...
Well, again, that's a discussion that
Yeah.
that'll evolve.
It's a never-ending conversation,
Yeah.
but it seems to kind of permeate through all of our discussions so far. So, I mean, it's just...
Speaking of escape room business, if any of you are closed because it's a holiday, I hope you're noticing how much in the background our phone is nonstop ringing, and that's just Morristown's phone.
Right.
So yeah, holidays. Hate sucks working on them, but it's nice bringing in the revenue.
And they'll usually book day of because people will just see what's out there.
Yeah. So I guess to close this topic out, before we get into our other ones, you will find tons of content on people who have illegally ventured to Discovery Island.
Yes, we do not advocate that, but there is video on YouTube.
But there's plenty of video. Check out the video.
And it's pretty cool. So
And
for
look-
all you urban
But we don't
explorers out
have
there,
do not do that. We're not advocating that you do
No,
something
you will
illegal.
be arrested and banned for life
Yeah.
from Disney World. That's literally their
It
rule.
kind of looks like the island now kind of looks like Lost World Jurassic Park.
Yes.
A
Also, because
beware the
there's-
high grass.
There's still all cages and everything from when
Yeah.
they had animals on the park, and so yeah, it's very much a Jurassic Park
Lost World,
level
yeah.
concept. But and from what I understand, they were breeding animals there while they were making Animal Kingdom.
Great.
If Disney would do like genetic
So,
modification. If they're not yet, it's happening in the future.
So
I'm sure they have a division.
Very, very cool concept there. But yeah, and also keep in mind, if any of you do feel illegally adventurous, Disney owns all that land. And not just owned it in the fact of we own this property in the state of Florida. That's their own zip code. You're on international territory. So if you get busted in there, don't be surprised if you come out the other side with a few teeth missing and some serious beat down
Disney
level
jail.
events happening because
you
Disney's got their own jails.
World War III begins in Discovery Island in Disney.
Yeah, they're not gonna just release you to the Orlando PD or the Kissimmee PD. They're going to probably brutally wreck you before they do.
If you want to do something about police, brutality, though, there's your opportunity.
It's not actual police; it's Disney police.
Even worse.
Let's be clear to Disney. We don't know that happens. So we're not saying that for sure will happen, but we are saying that it is illegal to go onto that island,
illegal,
and you don't want to do it.
Now, having said that, over the last, I believe, 2-3 years, they had officially removed the docks because apparently
they
people
did
were trying
remove the
to
docks.
canoe themselves in overnight.
That makes sense.
Also, as a very big warning, there's gators.
Yeah.
There are a lot of gators apparently on the island too.
On the
So it's been
terrifying.
abandoned for a decade.
I mean, no, it makes sense. Yeah.
So keep that in mind. But they also, because the island was desolate for so long, a couple cool things about it. One, they still run power to it.
No, I read that the power cut out like 5 years ago or something. Why?
Because they're doing construction.
Oh, they are doing something there?
They're doing something. So something
okay.
is coming to Discovery Island. There are no official announcements, but there's been a lot of spy photos of construction.
They could put like a hotel there. It might be cool.
It might be really cool. That would actually probably make a ton of money.
Yeah.
Till the
Stay on
alligators
the
start
island.
eating people.
Well,
Till
I'm sure
till gators
the
start
first
eating
thing they did was get the gators
Yeah.
out, I would think.
I'm sure that's probably number one.
They always come back though, Frank.
All right, Frank. What's next?
All right.